Hey everybody, Fries101Reviews here. Welcome to the final episode of Season 2 of Fries101Reviews Interviews, people. And today it might be a little bit special of an interview. I think you may have known him as the games, as the many game reviewers. So, yeah. Introduce yourself, man.
Hey, well, it's me, Sam. I'm known as the Game Professor on YouTube. I do a show called Games is Lit 101. It's all about video game stories.
So I have like 10 a list of 10 questions on here. And the
All right.
first question is, tell me about yourself.
Well, like I said, my name is Sam. I guess I don't really know what is interesting or germane to this conversation, but I'm just a guy who liked video games from a young age and specifically over time grew to appreciate them for their stories more than anything else. Still enjoy everything else, of course, but, really just got something special out of video game stories and got my degree in English while constantly trying to relate it to video games as often as my professors would allow. And, I actually, when I got out of college, had the opportunity to briefly teach a video game literature class for 2 years, and that was a lot of fun. And once we moved and I, couldn't do that anymore, I started the show in order to just keep that going in some way, and it's met with some degree of success, so that's fun.
The next question is, when did you start doing YouTube?
I'd be back in 2014, September of 2014 is when I started this whole thing. I made a little video, I just called it the syllabus, and then, just describing what the show is, and then started off with my Prince of Persia, The Sands of Time analysis, and kept going weekly for a little while until life got crazy. But yeah, so it was back in 2014. Been a little while now.
Alright. The next question is, what is your favorite game review to edit/make?
Like, my favorite of the ones that I've done?
Yeah.
Specifically, like, my favorite to make, huh? Here, just a sec. Cookie Cat, I appreciate that you have a little box, but you're making a lot of noise. Hey.
Alright.
My favorite to make so far was probably my Stanley Parable analysis. It's not the most popular one on my channel by a long shot, but I did, since the Stanley Parable is essentially an exploration of choice in video games and how it relates to narrative and agency and stuff like that, I did a series of short videos that kind of branched off of one another and let the viewer, click little annotations on the screen or links in the description to choose what part they would go to next, and that was a lot of fun. And I'm kind of sad that it hasn't gotten as much attention as some of my other videos, honestly, because it was a lot of fun to do, and it's a neat little thing that happened.
The next question is, what is your favorite game?
Oh, that's a terrible question. Don't ask me that. I actually feel bad because for a long time, there were two games fighting for that title, Final Fantasy VI and 7. 7 because it was my first RPG, but also legitimately is a very good game. I know it gets a lot of hate now for being the popular one, but it is a really good one. And then 6, just because 6 is also an incredible game. But then, right in the middle of that fight, I played Persona 4, and it kind of swooped in out of nowhere and stole the number one spot. I don't know, the game had a weirdly profound and powerful effect on me. I connected with its characters and story and stuff more than just about anything I've ever seen or read or played or anything. I don't know, it did a number on me, so it kind of stole that spot. So yeah, Persona 4, I suppose.
The next question is, what is your least favorite game?
Oh, no, don't do that. Okay. I'll have to specify. Least favorite is different from the game I think is the worst game.
Yeah.
Because, I've played some really bad games. some of which were just bad. Like I played the DS version of the video game based on the Golden Compass movie. That was one of the worst things I've ever played. And then some of which I legitimately love. Ride to Hell Retribution is a terrible, terrible game, and I love it so much. It's hilarious and horrible in every way. But that's not the same as the game that I hate the most. And, oh man, that's a tough one. Because I'd have to go with the game that did something terrible to a series I love, which means that I'm trying to decide right now between Metroid Other M and Prince of Persia Warrior Within. That second one always gets me a lot of disagreement. A lot of people really like Warrior Within, but I hate with a passion everything that it did to that series. Probably that one, I guess. Sands of Time was very influential for me, so Warrior Within was probably a bigger disappointment to me than Metroid Other M. Even though Other M probably is worse. But yeah, no, I'll probably say Prince of Persia Warrior Within, I suppose.
The next question is, what type of editing software do you use to make games as well?
I use Adobe Premiere. I grew up learning how to video edit on iMovie and then Final Cut, but by the time I started making games as Lit 101, I was married, and my wife, being an illustrator and animator, had access to the whole Adobe suite, whereas I no longer had my access to Final Cut, so I learned how to use Adobe Premiere, and yeah, it works quite well, so.
Alright. The next question is, what got you inspired into doing game reviews? Hello? Do we have any technical issues? The next question, which is, what got you inspired into doing game reviews?
Well, yeah, it was largely the class that I taught, and I should maybe specify that what I don't know how to say this without sounding pretentious, but I guess that comes with the territory. What I do on the show, I guess I do game reviews on the show now, but the main thing that Games is Lit 101 does is analyses. So it's not just, it's not a matter of what makes this game good or bad, should you buy it, stuff like that. I don't give, scores at the end of my game analyses. They're like 40 to 60 minute deep dives into what a game means. Video essay is probably a more accurate term. And really, yeah, it was the fact that I had done that teaching. My problem is that I hadn't realized that I would love teaching. I didn't think of that as a thing that I would want to do. So when I'm going through school, I just went through, I got an English degree. I didn't do teaching credentials or anything like that, and it was just after I graduated and had an opportunity.
Alright, so the next question is, do you plan to continue to do YouTube as a job in the future?
I'd certainly like to. It kind of just depends on how life goes, because it's hard to... I mean, I do have a Patreon, and that's helping. YouTube ads help a little bit, but YouTube ads aren't a very good source of revenue at all. Like, it's a tough thing, because this has to actually pay enough to support my wife and I if it's going to be a thing that I can actually do in a real sense. It's really hard to make this kind of thing work when I'm also needing to work and actually get my income on the side. So that's going to need to be a thing that happens at some point, but it's hard to create enough content and keep the show going regularly and to good enough quality and stuff, and often enough when I can't focus on it full-time. So it's a catch-22. Can't make it full-time without treating it like a full-time job. It can't do that without, starving. So it's we'll see how it goes, but I'd certainly like to continue doing it, and if at some point it can actually get to a point where it supports us, then that'd be great. I would love to do it full time.
All right. The next question is, what goes into making a Games is Lit 101 episode?
Ooh, oh boy. Are we talking about like the little theoretically weekly episodes or the big long analyses?
I'm guessing the big long analyses, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, that's a fun one. First step is, of course, to play the game. Usually it's a game that I've played before, so it's replaying, but sometimes, especially when a patron has, pledged at a certain Patreon level and requested a game, sometimes it is my first time through the game. But usually it's replaying the game, which I always do. I don't just go off memory. I think it's very important to have it fresh in my mind. So I replay the game. As I'm doing so, I take notes. I've actually streamed that a couple times. I would think it's a very boring process, but I guess it has something of an audience because I'm just playing the game, and then occasionally I'm like pausing it and talking through, like, oh, this means that, and I'm writing stuff down. But so yeah, it's replaying the game, and then a process of research, because usually, not always, but usually the games that I do analyses on have been out for a little while already, so there's already been a good deal of discussion surrounding them. So I look into that a bit. What was the reception? What are other people saying about the story and what it means and how well it was communicated, stuff like that. See if I can get any insight from the existing work on the game. And then it's writing. Just sitting down, trying to figure out how to structure the video, how much summary is necessary, stuff like that. Working through everything that I'm thinking about it, running everything by my wife in case she has any ideas. And then I'll usually, when I'm done with it, post it to my Patreon, because $10 a month and higher patrons get to look at it ahead of time before I film it. And then it's filming, which usually takes a while for those ones, and then it's just a buttload of editing. It's a ridiculous amount of editing, because those tend to be 40 to 60 minutes, and there's a good deal of video game footage in there. So it's, I'll download a long play, usually from longplays.org, and credit them, and just kind of go through and try and put all the footage where it belongs. It's a big, long process. It's enjoyable sometimes, it's super not enjoyable other times, but it's always rewarding when I have an analysis, a full, deep look into a game that I can feel proud of and that people are enjoying and stuff.
All right. I have another, I guess, a follow-up question to that, I guess.
Okay.
I guess, do you, sometimes when you, film, do you sometimes have, a bit of outtakes when it comes to making, the live-action bits for the reviews?
Occasionally, yeah. Normally it goes fairly, I have the script written and organized in shots, like little snippets that I can record, and then I essentially try and memorize them well enough that I can get those, 4 lines or so across reasonably well. So, there will certainly be a lot of times that I mess up or, whatever. It's not usually particularly funny just when I do that, but there are some more enjoyable ones. I think my favorite was probably when we were recording in another house that we lived in the past, where there wasn't too much room, and the cat's litter box was in the same room as my studio for filming this. And so I'm talking about all this stuff, and suddenly we just hear the sound of water, and there's a cat just peeing in the litter box in the middle of me trying to say my stuff. And that was definitely had to redo that one. It's always fun to listen through it again and see what actually came over on the mic, and yeah, that definitely did, very loudly. So, yeah, that happens.
And I guess a bonus question before the final question is, who does your title cards for the thumbnails?
The art?
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be my wife, Jimmy Bonagowski-Gronseth. She... I follow her on Twitter and retweet her sometimes. You can find her on there at JimmyCat, and she is great. She's just a great... I married her, so obviously I think she's great, but she's a good artist, and really, without her help in general in production of this show, Games is Lit would either not be a thing or would not be as good a thing as it is. So I'm very, very grateful to her. But yeah, her work with the illustrations in the show and the title cards and stuff has been very, very helpful. I can't draw for crap, so it's definitely better than if I were left doing it.
All right. So the next and final question is: do fans suggest you games to review?
Do they? Yes, all the time. But I don't. The thing is that I have systems for both my analyses and reviews. Requesting for me to do an analysis and then, actually having me do it is a tier on Patreon. So, and for that matter, once I catch up on them, because I have a couple requests that are backlogged right now that I'm still working on, once I'm caught up on those, I plan on instituting a one-time payment option too, just because analyses are a huge deal. They're a ton of work, and it's one of those things where, like, I'd love to just be able to do this, but I can't. If I'm going to be doing that much work because someone wants me to do something, there needs to be some kind of way for me to justify putting that much work and time into it. So that's a Patreon thing, and will eventually be a single-time donation option as well. And for game reviews, I actually have a system where if someone wants me to review a game that I haven't played and don't own, they can buy it for me. And if they do that, they can contact me at my email, gamesasliterature@gmail.com, and just offer one way or another, Steam gift, PayPal, whatever. And there's a backlog of those two that I'm currently working on playing through. But so yeah, I have systems for those two. So people often suggest that I do things, but like I said, as much as I wish I could just do everything everyone wanted me to, it's not super an option. So I have those systems in place if you really want to actually make me do something.
And I guess that's pretty much about it. I've answered, well, assumably every question I have written. So
All right.
Do you have anything else to say before I end the interview?
Not particularly, aside from just, if any of this sounded even vaguely interesting to you, you can, I'm sure that there will be a link in the description of this video or whatever, but, GamesAsLit101, at GamesAsLit is the Twitter handle and stuff like that. So, I'd say if you want to check out the series, head over there, find one of the big long analyses of a game that you like. I've covered a variety of them, from indie games like Little Inferno to big popular ones like The Last of Us and Bioshock, and just find a game you like and see if you like what I have to say about it. So, you can find it on there.
Yeah. So I guess that's pretty much about it. So I guess join me next time when I actually don't know who I'm going to interview next, but you're going to have to find out during Season 3, because I am taking a bit of a break for the next season, because I'm trying to think of other stuff, what to do for it. So yeah, I guess that's about it. Thank you guys so much for watching Fries Reviews. Thank you guys so much for watching Fries Reviews. I'll see you guys in the next video. See you guys later. Bye-bye.
Bye.